Hi, everybody. Let's do 7th grade C4, add integers. So for this one, I want you to do the work on paper. These are the instructions. You'll have to write the problem, the work, and the final answer. Okay? So for the problem, you're going to write the problem, and if you need to rewrite anything, you're going to do it here. So let me tell you what I mean by that. Over here, the problem is -3 plus 1. So on your paper, you would write -3 plus 1. I know this looks a little weird that I didn't fill in the line, but for some reason, oh, there it goes. It wasn't working before. Anyway, you write the problem down there. If you need to rewrite anything, you do it here. What do I mean by rewriting? If you go into my reference pages under the packets here, find reference pages, and then negatives is on page 5. So we can go down to page 5. There you see page 5. The rewriting rules are if you subtract a negative, that's like adding a positive. If you add a negative, that's like subtracting a positive. Okay, but we are just adding a positive here. So there's nothing to rewrite. I don't have the plus and negative symbols right next to each other. So there's nothing to rewrite there. So we'll just leave that as the problem. And then for the work that we need to do, notice here that my first number is negative and I have different symbols over here. So what do we do when that happens? Again, whoops. Okay. So again, you can look at the reference pages if you don't remember. When the adding subtracting rules, if I have different symbols, okay, then I subtract and take the symbol in front of the larger number. And you can look at some examples down here also on the reference page. So I'm just going to go back here now, and remember the rule was I should subtract and take the symbol in front of the larger number. So I'm going to subtract these numbers. I'll subtract 3 and 1. So I'll subtract 1 from 3 because the bigger number always, always, always has to go on top. Even though the negative is in front of the 3, when I do the subtraction, the bigger number always has to go on top, and I have to subtract the smaller number. So 3 minus 1 is 2. So remember, the rule said subtract, which I already did, and then take the symbol in front of the larger number. So let's go back to the original problem. The numbers, just ignore the signs for a second. The numbers were 3 and 1. So 3 is the bigger number, and the symbol that was in front of that was a negative. So that means that my final answer is going to be a -2. Which makes sense. Okay, so this is the work that I would want you to show on your paper. You don't have to draw a number line for all of these. You can if the numbers are small enough that it's not too hard. You can if you want to. I'm just showing you the number line so you can see that the answer does make sense. So, because if we start at 3 and then plus 1 means we go one space to the right, we would end up at -2. Okay, so everything that we did over here makes sense. All right, so let's move on to the next problem. So -2 there. All right, now I have 2 plus -2. Let me see if I can scroll up a bit or down. Okay, 2 plus -2. So the work that you're going to show on paper is you're going to just write the problem. Now, if you need to rewrite anything, you do it here. We do need to rewrite that plus negative, we can turn into a minus. So this 2 plus -2 is the same thing as 2 minus 2. And the work that we would do, well, the work here is pretty simple. You notice that the first number here is a positive number. When the first number is a positive number, then it's just like you learned in elementary school. So I'm just going to do 2 minus 2 here. The only time that there would be a little bit of a trick if the first number is positive is if you're subtracting and if the second number is bigger. So for example, if we were doing 2 minus 10 here, then the work that I would do would be 10 minus 2, and then I would just have to remember to make my answer negative. But I don't have to worry about that for this one. I just have 2 minus 2, which is 0. And my final answer is also just 0. I don't have to worry about positive or negative because 0 is neither positive nor negative. It's just 0. Okay, so 2 plus negative 2 is equal to 0. All right, let's do one more problem at this level, and then we'll move on. The problem is negative 3 plus negative 2. I'm going to rewrite this plus negative as subtraction. So I would get negative 3 minus 2. Notice that nothing happens to the negative 3. Now the work that I would do, since my first number is negative, whenever your first number is negative, it's a good idea to look at these adding subtracting rules. These are really more important when the first number is negative. So if the symbols are the same, right, if we have same symbols, then the work that we need to do on the side is addition. Okay, the side work over here is addition, as you can see, but the full rule is to add and keep the symbol. Don't forget that last part there, keep the symbol. So your answer is going to be negative in these cases where these symbols are both the same here. Okay, so let's work that out for this problem. I'm going to add these numbers. So I'm going to do 3 plus 2, which is 5, but then I keep the symbol. My answer is not positive 5, it's negative 5. Okay, keep the symbol. Now you might ask me, Mr. Friedman, which symbol? Well, they're both the same symbol, right? So there's no confusion there, just making it negative 5. You might say, but Mr. Friedman, this is a negative and this is subtraction, and you're right about that. So they mean different things in different contexts, but it's the same symbol. Both of them are just a little dash, right? Okay, again, you don't have to draw a number line, but just to show you real quick that the answer makes sense, I think this is the last number line that I'm going to draw. You can draw number lines on your paper if it helps you think. I would start at negative 3 and go 2 spaces to the left, 1, 2. So my, oops, okay, there, I'll squeeze in a negative 1 there, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. So the answer of negative 5 does make sense for this problem. All right, let's move, let's move right along. All right, let's just skip ahead. Oh, you know what? I'll do this problem actually. And the reason I'll do it is just to explain what I was talking about before. So, okay. 4 plus negative 9. So the plus negative is going to turn into minus. We have 4 minus 9. So here, I said if the first number is positive, then it's just like what you did in elementary school, except the only exception to that is if you're doing subtraction here and you're taking a bigger number away from a smaller number, then the work that you'll do is still subtraction. And remember, I always put the bigger number on top, so I'll do 9 minus 4. So that part is fine, but then you just have to remember to make the answer negative. If you're taking a bigger number away from a smaller one, the answer is going to be negative. So negative 5 there. Again, on a number line, you can think about it. If you start at 4 and move to the left 9 spaces, you would end up at negative 5, right? Okay, so let's just go ahead and skip to the next level here. So they're basically, I think they're all pretty much like this. So this is like the problems we've been doing. The only difference is the numbers are a little bit bigger, but that really doesn't matter so much unless you were using a number line for everything. If you were using a number line for everything so far, that's okay. But when the numbers get bigger, you're going to need a strategy that's a little bit faster than just drawing a number line every time. So here I'm going to rewrite this. That becomes plus negative becomes minus. And now I have same symbols, so the rule is to add and keep the symbol. So we'll do 59 plus 12. That's going to give me 71, and I keep the symbol, so negative 71. Right, now I have over here 13 plus negative 51. Again, plus negative becomes minus, so I have 13 minus 51. The work that I'm going to do is subtraction here. My first number is positive, so I'm not using, so I don't really need to bother so much with the same symbols, different symbols rules that I have on the reference page over here. I do. So I'm just going to do the operation that it says right over here, just like I did in elementary school. You know, in elementary school, if it said subtraction, you did subtraction. If it said addition, then you did addition, right? There was no confusion there. The only difference is here, since I'm taking a larger number away from a smaller one, I'm going to do the subtraction like this, where I put the bigger number on top. Now let's see, I can't take 3 away from 1, so I have to borrow from the 5, that becomes a 4, put a 1 next to this one, that's 11, minus 3 is 8, and 4 minus 1 is 3. So it said subtraction, and I did subtraction. The only thing I have to be careful of is I always, always, always put the number on top, but then also, since I was taking a bigger number away from a smaller one, I know that my final answer must be a negative 38, not a positive 38. Okay, and again, if you don't have to draw a whole number line, but if you just imagine it in your head, it should make sense if you start at positive 13 and then you go 51 spaces to the left because we're adding a negative, you move to the left, you would end up at negative 38, not positive 38. Also, if we're subtracting a positive, we move to the left. Okay, all right. Okay, I'll do this one and then skip to the next level. Negative 86 plus 54. Okay, so I have nothing to rewrite here. These symbols are not right next to each other. I'm only going to rewrite if the symbols are right next to each other. Since my first number is a negative number, it is important for me to remember these rules over here. Okay, I have, for that problem, what did I think I had different symbols, right? Let me just remind myself. Yeah, it was different symbols. So if I have different symbols, then the work that I'm going to do on the side is subtraction. You can see in these examples, the side work here is always subtraction if we had different symbols to begin with. And then I just have to keep the symbol that's in front of the larger number. So that's the rule when we have different symbols. So going back here, I'm going to subtract. So always, always, always put the bigger number on top when you're subtracting. Even though the 86 had a negative in front of it, I'm just going to put the 86 on top, put the 54 below it. I'll put that minus symbol in front of the 54. Okay, so I'm just going to do the subtraction here. And then I have to decide, should my final answer be positive or negative? So it is a good idea. I'll just sketch really quickly a number line. I'm not going to draw every little number, but if this is telling me that from 0, I'm going 86 spaces to the left, and then plus 54, I go 54 spaces back to the right, you can see that I'm still going to end up in negative territory, right? This is the negative side, this is the positive side. So my answer should be a negative 32. If I go 86 spaces to the left and then 54 spaces to the right, if you actually want to do all this on a number line, be my guest, but it's going to take a long time. You would end up at negative 32, okay? So basically, another way we could have seen that pretty quickly is just compare these numbers. 86 is bigger than 54, so I'm going to take the symbol in front of the 86. And the reason I do that, you can see from the number line, is because I went further to the left than I did to the right, so I still wound up in negative territory. Okay, so my answer here is going to be negative 32. All right. Actually, you know what? Let's do this one. Here, the problem is 65 plus 95. Now, whoops, what's the work that we should do over here? The first number is positive. So again, I tell you, when the first number is positive, you don't really need to worry so much about those different symbols, same symbols rules. This is just like a problem that you could have had in elementary school. You could have done this in third or fourth grade. So you just add up these numbers, okay? So I'm still going to put the bigger number on top. Even though it doesn't really matter so much for addition, I just like to get in the habit of doing that because, if I'm in that habit, then when I get a subtraction problem, I'll do it the right way. So I'll do 95 plus 65. So that's 10 there, carry the 1, and then that is going to give me 16. And, this is just 160. So this is really an elementary school problem. And the reason I would even bother doing it is, first of all, you're going to have to do it for your IXL homework. But second of all, it's just to remind you that just because you're learning about negative numbers now and adding a negative and subtracting a negative and what happened with negative territory and positive territory on the number lines, you've learned all these rules for dealing with negative numbers, but that doesn't mean that what you learned in elementary school is no good anymore. This problem that you could have solved in elementary school, 65 plus 95, it's still just 65 plus 95. The answer in third grade was 160, and it's still 160 even if you're in seventh grade or eighth grade or whatever. Okay, so just because you're learning now about negative numbers, please don't forget what you already knew in elementary school, because this is just an elementary school problem here. Okay, so we'll put 160 there. All right, here's another elementary school problem. 17 plus 31, that would be 48, right? No negatives there, no tricks there. It would just be 48. You should also show the work on your paper, but I just did it quickly. All right, so I'm going to skip to the next level. Oops. Okay, so the next level is basically the same. Um, the only difference is now we have triple digit numbers instead of double digit. So I'll just do this one problem and then I'll end the video there. We have 467 plus negative 276. So the plus negative is going to become a minus. Now, the work that we need to do, again, this is like an elementary school problem. When the first number is positive, then it's like an elementary school problem. The only thing you have to watch out for is if you're doing subtraction and if you're taking a bigger number away from a smaller one, then you would have to remember that your answer is negative. But we're not even doing that here. The first number is bigger, the second number is smaller. So we're taking a smaller number away from a bigger number, just like you did in elementary school. So this is a pretty simple problem. You're just going to subtract the numbers just like that. And let's see, 7 minus 6 is 1. I can't take 7 away from 6. Here I took 6 away from 7. I can't take 7 away from 6. So I borrow from the 4. That becomes a 3. Put a 1 next to the 6. Now I have 16 minus 7 is 9 and 3 minus 2 is 1. So I'm going to get 191 here. Again, since I was taking a smaller number away from a bigger one, it's just like elementary school, and my answer is positive. Okay? So I'll check. I don't think I'm going to do any more problems. I think I've done enough. All right. So this problem here, you would not have to rewrite. This would be different symbols, subtract, and take the symbol in front of the larger number. All right, so I'm not going to bother doing that. I think I've done problems like that. So again, I hope that was helpful. and have a great day.